Another month, another TBR. But this month, I kind of have to come clean and tell you about some things that I've been reading that I haven't told you about. Hello everyone and welcome to my June TBR. I'm going to share with you all the books that I plan on reading this month. As with all of these TBR videos, I generally pick about 3,000 pages, at least 3 genres, and I pick all but one of the books. This month, my guest selector for the TBR, I'm really excited. I have Jonathan from Words in Time to pick a book for me. Jonathan has become one of my go-to people on the internet as far as picking science fiction books. He just has some great stuff over there. If you don't already subscribe, definitely check out his channel. I'll link in the description below. But I'm excited to see what Jonathan picks for me, and then I'll be telling you everything else. But let me first tell you what I alluded to in my cold open, how I've been holding back on you. First of all, you may have noticed in my monthly wrap-ups, I've been doing a little bit of audiobook listening to, a little bit more than in past years. And part of that is I've just a couple days a week during my commute, I turn on a book. I also have had quite a few just road trips around the last couple months. So I've been doing a little bit more of audiobooks, but I've never talked about them in the TBR. So whenever I start a new audiobook, I'll start throwing it into the TBR, even though it may not finish that month. So the audiobook that I just started recently is a Star Wars audiobook, which is really my kind of guilty pleasure in literature. I love the Star Wars books, and the audiobooks are great because they have soundtrack, they have special effects, and they're just really great production value for those audiobooks. The one I'm reading currently is Brotherhood by Mike Chen, and this is a book that's set right after episode 2 and has to do with Anakin and Kenobi and that business on Cato Nemoidia, which we heard about in episode 3. So I'm really excited to get through that one. I may not finish it this month, but it's on this video because I just started it. The other thing I'm holding back on you is I wanted to make a more concerted effort this year to read short stories. And I realized the way that I read, I tend to be kind of a binge reader because I tend to read an hour to 3-hour chunks at a time. And putting down a short story collection like that is really not the best way to do so. So what I've done instead is I've been reading just a short story after about every book that I've finished. So the short stories I've been reading so far this year by Robert E. Howard, and they're in a collection called Conan's Brethren, and these have been really enjoyable. I'm about halfway through the collection, and these are not Conan stories, but some of them are fantasy like Cole the Conqueror, Bran Mac Morn. We have some Solomon Kane, which is set in our world. There's a lot of really good, just inventive stories here about kind of the heroic nature of Conan, but with a bunch of different characters rather than that character. So this one will take a while because this is 700 pages of short stories, but after I finish this one and I start a new short story collection, I'll add it to the TBR as well. All right, let's go next into the actual TBR of the physical books that I will be reading and plan on reading in June. This kind of has 2 sections to this TBR because I'm traveling the last half of June. I'm actually going to be out of the country. So the selections for then and before are quite different. So I might actually succeed in reading these in the order that I lay them out, which I've never done, even though I try to do that. Well, the first thing I plan on reading in June is The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. This, of course, is the 6th book in publication order in the Chronicles of Narnia, which I have read this year, 1 per month. Been enjoying these a lot more than I did as a kid, frankly. I don't know what that says about me or me as a kid. Anyway, I'm really enjoying these. This is the one that's kind of a prequel to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I don't remember it. I was 12 when I read it. You know, I've slept quite a bit since then, so I don't remember it at all. So I'm looking forward to reading that as my first book in month. The second book that I plan on reading this month is Shaman's Crossing by Hobb. I'm really excited for this. If you've watched this channel at all, you know that Hobb is one of my favorite authors of all time. I've read everything by Hobb that's Realm of the Elderlings, and this is a trilogy called the Soldier's Son Trilogy, which is the only work that she published as Hobb because she published everything else she's written as Megan Lindholm. So I'm very curious to see this. It must be just the only other works that's epic fantasy, as a lot of the other works tend to be kind of more urban fantasy, I think, or even just shorter, less epic scale storytelling. But I'm really excited to read this. I'm going to be reading this in June, July, and August with a whole bunch of people, and I'm sure I'm going to forget one, so I apologize if I forget anybody. I know that, of course, Derry is reading along with this. From Derry's read it before. Scott, the Bald Booktuber, is going to be reading with us. Evie from She's Only Evie is going to be reading. Kyle, read by Kyle, and there's probably 2 or 3 more that I'm not forgetting. So my apologies. Next month, I'll make sure I have a list to read, but I kind of failed at that. But I'm really excited to read these. We'll probably be talking about them on the Grimoire Discord, so if you want to join us in those discussions, I'm really excited to read more Hobb. I've kind of almost been in like a 6-month hangover since finishing Assassin's Fate last year. And my third book this month will be the selection from Jonathan. So Jonathan, what am I reading this month?
Hey Josh, it's your pal Jonathan from Words in Time, and I'm here today to help add to your June TBR with some science fiction. And the sci-fi book that I have picked out for you is Solaris by Stanislav Lem. When Chris Kelvin arrives at the planet Solaris to study the ocean that covers its surface, he finds himself and the crew examining the planet are plagued with repressed and newly real memories. Could it be the ocean creating these memories? And for what reason? I really enjoyed the tone and atmosphere in this one, and I know you're a fan of Stephen King, and while I wouldn't say that Solaris is quite horror, it does have a little bit of a creepy and surreal and mysterious feel to it that I think you might enjoy. Lem does a great job of balancing the science with the philosophy. There are some info dumps here and there, but I really enjoyed all of the sci-fi concepts, and I think they tied in really well to some of the big thematic ideas that Lem was going for, in terms of humans grappling with their understanding of the external as well as with the internal. I know that you're somewhat of a character reader, and that's not always something that sci-fi is particularly well known for focusing on, but Solaris is interesting in the fact that I think it's open to interpretation as to whether this is a book about the people or this is a book about this alien ocean. So I'll be interested to see all of your reactions to this one. I read this one recently and it became one of my all-time favorite sci-fi books. So I hope you enjoy it too, and if not, at least I picked something that was only 200 pages.
Thank you, Jonathan. I am really excited to read Solaris. After you told me you were picking this for me, I saw your video where you raved about this book and I think gave it like a 9.5 out of 10, which is really high praise for someone that is so well read in this genre. So I can't wait to read it. Thank you for picking it for me. And the final book that I plan on reading before I go on vacation is The Vanishing Tower by Michael Moorcock. This is the first book in the second omnibus Stormbringer of the Elric of Melniboné tales. I've really enjoyed these. I actually read 2 of them last month. You can look for my monthly wrap-up very soon where I talk about those and everything that I read in May. But I'm really excited to read this next one. I'm really enjoying these. First of all, they're shorts, and it's kind of refreshing to read fantasy that's not, a brick of a book. But beyond that, it's kind of classic fantasy, but it's different. There's much more shades of gray. I really enjoy Elric as a character, especially the more I get into these stories. So I'm really excited to read The Vanished Tower by Michael Moorcock. So after that, I'm traveling to Japan this month, and I'm really excited. This will be my second visit to the country, which I loved the first time I was there. So one thing you can be looking forward to in July is a video. I'm going to be shooting a travelogue there, and it's going to be called Reading Murakami in Japan. So I'm excited. I picked up the biggest Murakami book that I could find that I haven't read already, and that's Killing Commendatore. So I haven't even read the synopsis. I don't know what this is about, but I know with Murakami, it's going to be surreal. It's going to have something to do with Japanese culture, and I'm probably going to get very immersed in it. Now, even though it is a vacation, I know a lot of the trip I will likely be on trains and public transport and things like that. So I will likely be able to read this while I'm there. But I'm very much looking forward to reading some more Murakami as well as the trip as a whole. And I have 2 other books loaded up on the Kindle. I have more than that in case I get ahead, but I don't want to get too ambitious here. I will be on vacation after all, and although I will be reading quite a bit, as I always do, who knows how much I'll be able to read. But the 2 books on my Kindle, one is Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. Theo from Rekindled Reader reached out to Alex and I, Tall Guy Reads, and asked if he wanted to do a buddy read. in June. So we're going to be reading this together in June. I'm really excited. Theo, of course, picked for me in, I think it was February, Swan Song, which is one of my best books of the year. So I'm very excited to read more McCammon. He didn't have to twist my arm or anything to read more Robert McCammon, because I've heard such great things about Boy's Life. I heard it's very different than Swan Song. It's more of a coming-of-age tale, which I love those kinds of stories. So I'm excited to read this book with those two guys. And the last book on my June TBR is a self-published book called No Heart for a Thief by James Lloyd Doolin. This is a self-published book that I've been wanting to read for months. I was captivated just by the cover art, but then I started seeing a lot of YouTubers just rave about this book, and I'm really excited to read it. I think it is entered into SPIFFO. I don't know who's going to be reading that one, but I'm excited to read it. It's been on the Kindle just waiting for the right time, and since I'm traveling, it's so much easier to take a Kindle with me than to take a physical book. So I'm excited to read that work of self-published author, and I've been enjoying all of the self-pub I've read this year, and definitely looking forward to this one. Hey, so that's my June. Hey, what are you most looking forward to reading in June? And if you've read any of these in a spoiler-free manner, I'd love to talk with you about it in the comment section below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Also, find me on Twitter and Goodreads. I'd love to interact with you there. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.